At 6:15 in the morning, the alarm goes off. It's the kind that doesn't get ignored. Fire alarm. Loud, urgent. Within minutes, firefighters and police are outside a quiet bank in Gelsenkirchen.
Police. Customers of a German bank chant, "Let us in," after thieves robbed the branch and made off with more than $10 million worth of money and valuables.
It's just after Christmas. Streets are empty. No movement, no smoke. They walk through the building, check the obvious areas. Nothing. No heat, no fire, no smell. The vault isn't opened. There's no reason to. Protocol says if there's no danger to life, you don't force entry. So they leave. The alarm is written off as a fault, a glitch, a mistake, but it wasn't, because while they were standing inside that building, listening to silence, on the other side of a concrete wall, the robbery had already begun. By the time anyone realized what had actually happened, it was already over. More than 3,000 safe deposit boxes had been opened. Entire lifetimes gone. Cash, gold, documents, things people never told anyone about. Official estimates would later say around €30 million was taken. But victims and investigators weren't convinced. Some believed it could be far more, maybe €100 million, maybe more. And yet, despite the scale, despite the precision, despite the fact this happened in the middle of a functioning city, no arrests were made, no suspects identified, nothing recovered. Just one question that kept coming up again and again. How did they know exactly where to drill? Because this wasn't random, this wasn't luck, this was planned, down to the centimeter. The bank itself wasn't unusual. A standard Sparkasse branch in the district of Bohr. The kind of place people trust without thinking twice. Above ground, it looked ordinary, but underground, it was different. Beneath the building sat a vault holding 3,256 safe deposit boxes, each one rented out to individuals storing valuables they didn't want anyone else to see. Cash that never touched a bank account, family gold passed down for decades, important documents, private assets, things people believed were untouchable. And for the most part, they were. Because vaults like this are built to withstand force. You don't break into them easily. So instead of attacking the vault directly, they looked at what was next to it. On one side of the building, connected underground, was a multi-level parking garage. The Mariner car park, concrete walls, shared structure, and most importantly, access. Over the Christmas period, the bank was closed. Fewer staff, less activity, minimal oversight. It wasn't just a bank anymore. It was a target. They didn't rush it. This wasn't a smash and grab. They entered slowly, quietly, deliberately. The access point wasn't the front door. It wasn't a window. It was an emergency exit connected to the parking structure. A door that, by design, should only open from the inside. But somehow, it didn't behave that way anymore. It had been manipulated. Once inside, they didn't wander. They moved with direction, through basement corridors, past areas with little to no camera coverage. At one point, a motion detector sat directly in their path. It didn't stop them. It had been covered, neutralized before it could trigger anything. Then they reached the archive room. This is where things change. Because there were no signs of forced entry here, no broken locks, no smashed doors, which suggests something else entirely. Access, either through a code, a card, or knowledge that shouldn't have been available from the outside. From here, they were exactly where they needed to be, right next to the vault. They didn't try to open the vault door. They didn't need to. Instead, they built their own entrance. The wall separating the archive room from the vault wasn't weak. It was reinforced concrete, designed to hold. But they came prepared. A heavy industrial core drill, the kind used for precise cutting through dense material. Not loud explosions, not chaotic destruction. Controlled penetration. To keep the drill from overheating, they ran a water hose, over 20 meters long, connected from a nearby wash basin in the building's ladies' toilet. A strange detail, but a critical one. Water cooled the drill, reduced friction, and most importantly, kept the noise low. For hours, the machine worked. Slow rotation, constant pressure, grinding through the wall centimeter by centimeter, until eventually, a hole appeared, roughly 40 to 50 centimeters wide, just enough, not random, not messy, precise. They didn't break in. They calculated their way in. And on the other side of that wall was everything. That first alarm, the one at 6:15 a.m., it wasn't random. It wasn't a glitch. It was the moment this was happening. While firefighters and police stood inside the building, the drill was likely already running, hidden behind a wall they never checked. They followed protocol. No smoke, no visible fire, no immediate danger. In the vault, it stayed sealed. A roller shutter prevented easy access. Forcing it open without cause wasn't part of the procedure, so they left. What they didn't realize was that they had just walked away from an active heist, one that would continue for hours, possibly days. The timing wasn't accidental. This happened over a holiday period, reduced staffing, slower response, less urgency, and that false sense of security became the perfect cover, because once that alarm was dismissed, there was nothing left to interrupt them. They had time, and in a job like this, time is everything. Inside the vault, once they were through the wall, everything changed. This wasn't rushed. It was methodical, one box after another, opened, emptied, discarded. Inside the vault, there were over 3,000 safe deposit boxes. By the time they were done, more than 95% had been opened. Thousands, not smashed apart in chaos, but systematically worked through. Cash was taken, gold disappeared, valuables removed, anything worth carrying, gone. And then, there was what they left behind. Exactly 140 boxes remained untouched. Not broken, not forced, not even opened. Why those ones? No clear answer, which only made everything else feel more deliberate. The floor was left covered in what couldn't be taken. Documents, personal items, fragments of people's lives scattered across concrete. And before they left, they made sure of one more thing. Chemicals were sprayed across the area, not to clean, but to erase. DNA, fingerprints, any trace that might lead back to them. When they were finished, there was nothing left to find, except questions. What stands out isn't just what they did, it's how exact it was. They didn't drill blindly into the wall. They didn't test multiple points. They didn't adjust halfway through. They got it right, immediately. On the other side of that concrete wasn't empty space. It was the vault, which means they already knew where it was. The position, the depth, the alignment between the archive room and the safe deposit area. That kind of accuracy doesn't happen by accident. It suggests preparation at a level most people never see. Because to hit that spot, you either study the structure in detail, or you've seen it before. Authorities never confirmed an insider, but they didn't dismiss the idea either. There were too many things that lined up too cleanly. No forced entry where you would expect it. No hesitation in execution. No wasted effort. Even the decision to leave 140 boxes untouched raises questions. Not because it was sloppy, but because it wasn't. This wasn't trial and error. This was information being used. And whoever planned it understood exactly what they were doing.
Police say the robbers used a large drill on Saturday night to get at the loot via an underground parking garage which was just a wall away. Black Audi.
The escape. When it was done, they didn't rush. They exited the same way they came in. Quiet, controlled. At around 2:52 in the morning, CCTV captured two vehicles leaving the Mariner parking garage. A black Audi RS6, a white Mercedes van, both carrying false plates. Nothing about it looked unusual. No speeding, no panic, no attempt to draw attention. Just two vehicles leaving a garage in the early hours. Inside was everything they had taken. Days of work, loaded and gone within minutes. And by the time the alarm sounded again, they were already out of reach. No chase, no confrontation, just disappearance. At 3:58 a.m., the alarm triggered again. This time, it wasn't dismissed. Emergency services returned. Same building, same entrance, but this time, something had changed. When access to the vault area was finally forced, they saw it immediately. A hole in the wall, clean, deliberate, out of place, and beyond it, the vault. Opened, emptied, disordered, thousands of boxes hanging open, contents scattered across the floor. Whatever had value was gone. Whatever didn't was left behind. The scale wasn't fully understood in that moment, but the damage was obvious. This wasn't a partial break-in. It was complete access, and it had happened over an extended period, without interruption, without resistance, without anyone realizing what was actually going on. For the people affected, this wasn't just about money. It was about what that money represented. Around 2,700 individuals had rented those boxes, each one believing what they stored inside was protected. For some, it was cash kept outside the banking system. For others, gold, jewelry, or items passed down through generations. Things with value that couldn't be measured in numbers. And suddenly, all of it was gone. The official insurance coverage offered around 10,300 euros per box. For many, that figure didn't come close. Not even close. Some victims claimed losses far beyond that. Entire savings, decades of accumulation, reduced to a capped payout. At a public meeting, Victims described losing everything they had stored for years. Others spoke about sleepless nights, frustration, anger, uncertainty, because this wasn't just a theft, it felt like a failure of something they trusted, and that made it harder to accept. On February 19th, the tension became visible. More than 200 victims gathered to face the bank directly. At the center of it was CEO Michael Klotts. He apologized, said the situation was deeply regrettable, that the bank understood the impact, but the response in the room said otherwise. People weren't there for statements. They wanted answers. Why was the first alarm dismissed? How did intruders move through the building unnoticed? Why were some boxes left untouched? And, most importantly, how did this happen at all? Klotts avoided going into detail about security systems, avoided explaining the specific failures, and that only made things worse. Because without clear answers, the apology didn't feel complete. In that moment, the story shifted. It wasn't just about what was stolen, it was about whether it could have been prevented. Authorities responded with scale, hundreds of officers assigned, a dedicated investigation unit, surveillance footage reviewed, the bank itself searched, every possible angle examined. But despite all of that, there was no breakthrough, no arrests, no confirmed identities. The footage showed vehicles, but nothing that led to real suspects. The level of preparation, the absence of usable evidence, made this case unusually difficult. There were no obvious mistakes to follow, no clear trail, just a crime that had been executed cleanly and then disappeared. Even weeks later, the situation remained the same, open, unresolved. As more details became public, the questions only grew. How did they know exactly where to drill? Why was the first alarm not fully investigated? How did they move through secure areas without triggering a full response? Why were 140 boxes left untouched? Was that random or intentional? And if it was intentional, what guided those decisions? Even now, there are no definitive answers. Only theories, possibilities, and the uncomfortable idea that this wasn't just a well-executed robbery, but one that relied on knowledge that shouldn't have been accessible. Time passed, but the outcome didn't change. No arrests, no recovery, no clear resolution. For the victims, the impact stayed. Financial loss, emotional strain, and a shift in how they viewed security. Because places like this are built on trust. The belief that what you store there is protected. But this case challenged that. It showed that even structured systems can be studied, understood, and eventually bypassed. And once that belief is broken, it's difficult to rebuild. Whoever did this didn't just take what was inside the vault, they took advantage of the system around it and walked away without leaving anything behind, except a question that still hasn't been answered. How do you stop something that was planned this well?